And now, the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
I'm Andrew Sabo.
And today we are discussing Adventures in Odyssey episode 469, Chains Part 2.
The sequel to Part 1.
Is it a sequel or is it just
the conclusion?
The other half?
Yes.
Sequel implies that Part 1 was a complete story, which it's not.
Very much not.
Yeah.
Very apparently not. So this is the sequel to obviously Chains Part 1, which we covered last episode, which is following the story arc of the Wits End in Connellsville. They go to
specifically Oswald Heights.
Oswald Heights, which is clarified to be its own town.
Yeah.
In this episode, which is like one of my notes, is that it's its own thing, which makes me wonder, what is Connellsville? Is it a county?
No, I think they're just like...
Is it like a region?
I think they're two different, like
is it
almost,
like Brooklyn? Like
I was gonna say, like they're different boroughs of the same city, which sounds dumb.
This is the
like,
Bronx.
Well, but like the way that when you think New York City, you only think Manhattan.
But there's
other things that make up New York City. Oswald Heights is like another thing that makes up Connellsville.
Okay. I'm okay with that. I accept that. It's
maybe more of a neighborhood than a town.
Yeah, because it says that Wit invited an entire town. Spoiler alert. We'll get there.
Okay. Sure. We'll say it's a town.
I don't know. It baffles me in my head what the heck this place is. Because somehow it is all the bad parts of a city with being a self-contained town within another town.
Trailer Park was too cliche, so they went Oswald Heights.
Boy, is that an ominous name. Like Oswald Heights? My goodness. Yeah, I mean, that actually does sound like a bad, like, borough in, like, Baltimore or,
They know what they're doing.
Are there shady... What's the shady city in Florida?
I don't know.
This is Miami, I guess? No. Not Orlando.
Why are we talking about Florida?
Tampa Bay. Jacksonville. Jacksonville's the shady part of Florida.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go. Sorry for all of my friends in real life that live in Jacksonville.
Okay.
You're not tracking with the ongoing joke?
No, I am tracking with the ongoing joke. I'm just like, if you're from Jacksonville listening, email me. If you're not from Jacksonville listening, also email me. I haven't received any emails and I'm hurt.
He's sad.
We are a whole 6 episodes. This is 7.
Yes, this is our 7th. Good to clarify. Anyway, to continue, they're building a new Wits End in Oswald Heights.
Yep.
This is the continuation of the story arc. So last episode we were introduced to Tony and Brianna? I think it's Brianna.
Okay. We'll go with that.
Sure. And which are the kids that are living in the abandoned building that they're going to turn into the new Wits End in Oswald Heights. Can they have a shorter name? I don't know. Point being, we are in part 2. Yeah, the Novacom Kids Center.
I don't even remember if that's what it was.
No, that was it was. That's exactly what it was. Anyway, we're gonna roll the promo.
Whit wants to open a new shop in Odyssey, but the people of Connellsville have another idea: to keep Whit out. On the next Adventures in Odyssey, it looks like all hope is lost for the new Wits End, until Whit comes up with a surprising and unexpected plan. Can Whit win over his opponents? Find out on the next Adventures in Odyssey.
What is that music?
I don't know. That is quite the note to end on.
It's just like some like bad Dance Revolution mix.
Yeah. Some like weird funky dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, spoiler alert, Whit can fix things. Yeah.
He always
the voice of things. Focus on the Family as well as God can fix things.
They're one and the same.
Yeah. At what point do laughter turn to tears? Oh no.
The new single from Andrew Sabo.
At what point? No Tears Left to Cry by Ariana Grande. Laughter to Tears by Andrew Sabo.
Yep. Now we're just playing word association the game.
So they intro with talking about how production, or construction I guess is the word, on the new shop isn't going well. And Mary suggests that the people are going to kill Whit, which is terrifying in premise, and kind of adds to like the whole Mary being this eccentric old lady bit, which is kind of frustrating that I got a lot of out of this episode, was just her just kind of being ridiculous. But also, wow, like how bad of a place is this? Well, that they are so actively against getting a soda parlor that there is a threat of death on the owner.
He already visited a gang last episode.
Yeah.
He'll be fine.
Yeah. Also, Whit agrees to front the construction costs, or front the cost of security so that they can continue construction. Which,
well, yes and no. Like, he's agreeing to do it, but that's only because he thinks his plan's gonna work.
yeah.
He's not gonna do it indefinitely. He says he'll do it for like a couple days.
Yeah.
Until his master plan kicks in and they don't need the security. So Whit's grand idea, we don't get to hear it here. What we get to hear is the inspiration for his idea, which is Connie saying, like, if only they could experience this and get to see it, then they wouldn't fight us so hard.
Which is right, I think.
This episode proves that it's right, Andrew.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was Connie having a good idea.
Again, also very weird.
But like, it's not that she has a good idea. She doesn't have a plan.
No.
Whit still has to pull it all together. Because Connie's just like, what if that was possible? And Whit's like, oh yeah, that's totally possible.
Yeah.
All right, let me just not tell anybody about this for another, like, 2-3 scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and also, like, you know, Connie's a woman. They're very bad at planning things. It just has to do with the chemicals in their brain. It's, you know, she did the best she could with the tools she was given.
I'm glad it's Andrew saying it this time and not me.
So, they cut to being back at the house. Tony and Brianna are there, and Whit gives Tony a new guitar.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
After they walk from Brienne's room, and she's like, what's that large box? And then, because it's an audio show, guys.
Yeah.
And then Whit brings it in, and Tony opens it up, and it's a new guitar that's even better
exposition
than his one from before. But
yeah.
I like the fact that Whit had put a guitar in a box and not like a case.
Yeah.
Because if it was the case, she'd have been like, "Oh, why is there a guitar in the hall? In the hall? In the hole?
Ooh.
Why is there a guitar?
Why is there a hole in the guitar?
Because it's not electric."
Got him. Which presumably, from the bit that he plays, I think it's an acoustic.
Oh, it's definitely acoustic.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, Whit didn't buy him an amp.
True. Maybe Whit has one. He's got bad money. He could.
Maybe it's a Gresht. Maybe it's a hollow belly electric.
Yeah. I'm impressed with your knowledge there of guitars. I'm proud of you.
Wow.
Well, I don't know.
I am hurt, Andrew.
I only know that because I'm
all.
It's true. All right. So Tony's really good at the guitar, which we learned.
Oh yeah.
He just starts plucking away.
He plays a pretty cool little jingle.
Which he writes. He says it's about his dad, but there are no words. So did he just?
I don't think music has to have words to be about something.
Yeah.
Because it can invoke a feeling.
Yeah.
2, he didn't play enough of it. Like that could have just been the beginning, and then there's words to come, or he didn't feel like saying the words with Whit there or whatever.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So you're wrong.
So you're wrong. Well, at least I didn't pretend to be right. So then he says that his dad had given him his first guitar, had 4 strings on it, which isn't that just a ukulele?
Yeah, I think that was the implication. He
Okay.
said, because he said, I don't even know if he said guitar. He might. I forget how he phrased it, but he's like that was my, like, the guitar I lost was also given to him by his dad, but he said his dad, the first thing he got him was a 4-string.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, and it's like a tiny, he mentions it having 4 strings of being tiny, so he totally got
Like a ukulele. Which is like, cool. That's a cool gift.
That's a good dad move.
Yeah.
So Next scene is Wit at the town hall, because there is, I think Mary brings it up in the beginning scene of like, hey, there's gonna be this town hall meeting and everyone's gonna basically complain about how horrible you are. And Wit's like, all right, I'm going to that.
Yeah.
And so he gets up. They're all shouting about how bad this is gonna be, and he gets up and it's just like, hey, I'm John Avery Whittaker. And they're like, oh, we hate you. And he's like, come to my house.
Yeah.
Or,
my mom's making
with
food.
Sand. We'll have a barbecue. I'll ship you guys all there. Everything will be free. Then you'll get to see, and you won't hate us as much.
He's just swinging around his big old money bags.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you want free food? I got you. Yeah, well, and that was the thing. And so their whole big thing was that they don't want an ice cream shop because the people there don't have money. So they want a community center that everybody can use. But don't, like, community centers typically cost money?
Community centers typically cost money, and as we've discussed previously, I think the only thing at Wit's End that costs money is the food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely nothing else does.
Right.
Yeah, so, I don't understand
but
the
I don't know
logic
what the
behind that.
politician promised, because as
Yeah.
we learned earlier, a politician promised it, and you can't trust those. Unless they're very conservative and named Mike Pence.
And we trust everything.
Focus on the family.
That was nice. That was really nice. He says some scary things. Yeah, and then so Tom and Whit are talking, and Tom is just a good guy again.
Yeah,
like
that's
just like
my note is the same.
yeah,
I'm
good
just
guy
like,
Tom part 3. He's just
so great.
and like so he basically just supports Whit and is there for him, and then like Connie volunteers to help out. Mary volunteers to help out, and like things are seeming to look up. Like it's getting pretty hopeful.
Tom's gonna run the grill.
Yeah, and then so what? It just goes straight to the day of the event, right?
Yep. Our next scene is the doors to Wit's End being opened and people storming in.
Yeah, and it's like super loud, and like the production value is actually really good for that, because it definitely like it feels kind of claustrophobic, like
Yeah,
just
it
even
does.
listening to it.
There's so much like white noise and
Yeah.
and
Like the background stuff and everything, like you really
you hear stuff crashing in the background.
Yeah, which again, also like what the like Mary has to say that this is a non-smoking facility, and the guy that responds is very clearly very young. Like I'm guessing it's a high schooler that just walks into a
Right.
soda parlor with full of people and just decides to light up.
Well, it's Oswald Heights. You could die. there at night.
Fair
So
enough.
clearly,
Yeah, people
all the
are afraid to
kindergartners
walk
are
there.
smoking.
Pack of crayons, pack of cigarettes.
That's my motto.
First day of school.
Parenting 101.
Oh no! Of course you can. So Whit says, or somebody says to Whit, I think you bit off more than you can chew. And of course you did.
Right.
He invited an entire town.
Right. And so things are chaotic, and we hear kind of this disaster, but when we kind of fast forward, the only thing really before we jump to the end of that is Tony comes in and just completely blows off Whit.
Yeah.
So,
And
I
like
don't
that's
know.
important for
moody
later.
teenagers
Yeah.
are moody is kind of the implication.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
I don't want to be see with you because you're old and I'm cool and run a gang called the Brothers.
Yeah. Yep. That's the case. Yeah, that is true.
Anyways, so we kind of hit the end of the party and things are winding down. The people working there are saying bye to everyone, and it actually seems like things are pretty good, and they actually are like, that went really well. And I forget if it's this point or later, but it doesn't matter. Tom says, oh, we had exactly the number of hot dogs we needed. And I was like, you seem surprised by how many people were there.
Yeah, I'm just imagining
People were like even more like rabid than you expected, yet you had enough hot dogs?
Yeah. And when I heard that, I just imagined them sitting down together, like doing some sort of math equation.
I know.
So if the average person eats like 2, and there's gonna be a bunch, you know.
Yeah, very precise math.
Yeah.
Now, I was like, is this supposed to be like a subtle, like, feeds the 5,000 ref? Or are we just being like,
Just
I don't know, it was such a throwaway line. I was just like, it's
odd
funny
point
that
of
they
dialogue.
put it in here.
actually, something important to note. Tony did not ride with, Tony was in Oswald Heights and rode with all the other people from Oswald Heights,
Right.
even though he was staying with Whit. At the
Right,
time.
well, because Whit said, like, I think Whit says to Tom that he drove back. Because Tom's like, hey, where are they? And Whit's like, oh, I drove them back to the city because they wanted to ride in with the bus.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is interesting because, like, it seems like he'd be distancing himself from Whit, even though, like, you just had that scene in the beginning where he gets the guitar and it seems like things are kind of
Yeah.
chummy.
yeah, although, yeah, it is also a thing of, like, you don't
Hanging out
want
with
to
your
lose your
friends.
gang cred.
Yeah, I guess. Which,
I
considering
think
he's a
that's a
sap with a
thing. I
little
don't
sister that has, like, that writes, like, love songs and plays classical guitar, I don't know
That's
how
true.
he has much gang
That,
cred.
that you're spot on there.
But, yeah.
We're gonna fact check you on your gang cred there.
Yeah.
I'll
Tony.
I'll call up the leader of our local gang and ask him if they'd take you. All right.
Okay.
So we interrupt this thankful, like, hey, things went pretty well. Like, this was actually quite a success, with Connie rushing down and saying to Whit, someone broke into your office.
Which
Again.
is, yeah, crazy. And so they go up there. Whit checks it out. He sees that nothing is missing except for his electronic planning device.
Yeah, well, his whole room's scattered and whatnot.
Yeah, it's like been ransacked.
But the other thing of note here is Mary's just kind of like, hey, like, we're going to have to, like, put security around the office at this new one. And Whit's just like, no, we could never do that. We're trying to show them we trust them. And I'm like, they're showing you trust people, and then there's common sense. And common sense says, put security?
Yeah, well, like, having stronger locks on, like, your office, the kitchen,
Right.
stuff that has, like, you know, much, like, you just don't want students in there without
Right.
your, you know, permission. Like, you don't want kids in there. Like, yeah, of course, you should do that.
That's right. That's not a matter of trust.
That's just not being naive.
Right. I mean, I guess it is a matter of trust when you live in Odyssey, and I was going to say a small town where nothing bad ever happens, but the whole point of the series is that bad stuff always happens in Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because it's the center of the freaking universe.
And the government and the world.
Oh
and
my. Community college!
It just could just be a university. It would change nothing. Other than maybe hurt the small town feel. But it would make a lot more sense because then you get the whole, like, campus town, like, college town situation.
Yeah, we're way past the show making sense.
True.
It makes sense in its own universe, and I can accept that.
Yeah.
I don't need to make it make sense in mine, but I will still point out every time it doesn't, because, man.
Oof. It is rough.
And
And then Tom comes in and, like, settles everything down. And they figure out Whit talks to a detective. They figure it out. Eventually, they track him down.
Yeah, well, before we even get to that, Tom and Whit realizes that, like, hey, Tony and Brianna left. Like, they're not.
Yeah.
They went back with everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so he and Tom have, like, a good, like, friend conversation where Tom says, like, you can't force someone to stay in your house, Whit.
Yeah.
Which is just, like, Tom's so good. He knows, he knows what to say. He is, at the same time, supportive of Whit and of Tony. And this is the point, too, where
Whit wants to adopt them.
yeah. And Tom's just like, look, like, don't just jump into things. Whit.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and, like, you don't... Just because they're not getting what they need doesn't mean you're the one that has to give it to them.
right.
Like, there are people for this. Like, you are already overextended. Which, again, it's like, holy crap, Tom. Like, thank you for actually being the voice of reason here.
Right. Yeah.
Which is good, though, because, like, I think that Whit needed... Like, I really like Whit in these 2 episodes because he does seem like he's a much more human character.
Yeah.
He's a lot less brooding. He's a lot less whatever. He's just, like... Yeah.
He's trying to do what he thinks is right, and he's getting a little bit caught up in that, but he's got good intentions in it.
Well, and it's completely logical. Like, for him to get caught up, like, those are totally normal conclusions that normal people could come
Yep.
to given those circumstances.
Yep. But it's also great that we have Tom there to be like, hey,
Don't.
let's just process through this and not make a really big decision emotionally. Like,
Yeah.
let's take some time back. Let's think about it. Let's pray about it. Let's not just rush into things because you're caught up in
And how
the
you feel
emotion
about
of
them.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and like, that is good. And, like, also Whit, like, wow, that is definitely a step to take. Like, he's presumably in his 60s at least to want to adopt kids. Like, I can't imagine that there was no red flag that went off in his head, but
Yeah.
yeah, so
Now we're going to the police station.
yeah.
I guess Wick gets called in to the police station in Connellsville. It's the same
Yeah.
cop as we interacted with before. And he gives Wick back the item. And then he says, and I quote, "Want to see the kid who did it?"
Yep.
That's not how police stations work. And I
No,
just want
it
to make
shouldn't.
that very clear.
Yeah, they
that
shouldn't work like that.
I get that it is important to the plot. I get that Whit is a good person. I get that this is also smallish town America. But
Yeah.
holy crap, you do not be like, hey, you want to see the guy that we arrested
For
for taking your stuff? Random guy who I've spoken to once before?
Well, yeah, and even if Whit is a celebrity, it's like you can't just do that. That's gotta be breaking so many rules. Like, how big of a liability is that?
Yeah, it was dumb.
And it's not even like it was set up with Whit being like, oh, I just wish I could talk to him, you know? Like,
Right.
It's just him being like, hey, expositional dialogue here. You want to see the kid who did it?
Well, and additionally, we do establish this is the same cop from before.
Yeah.
But he doesn't, because we need the reveal of, wah wah, it's Tony! He isn't like, hey, the person who took it was that kid you were looking for. Or something like that would have been more believable.
Yeah.
He says, you want to see who did it? Then he takes him in, and then he's like, weren't you asking about him, Whit?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is... You just wanted to write it like this.
Yeah.
And whatever. But that doesn't make
Through-
sense.
All logic and, like, policy to the wind.
Yeah.
Like, we're done with this. We need dramatic dialogue. Please and thank you. Yeah, and then, so Tony's kind of, like, jaded and a jerk a little bit. And that's where, that's...
Yeah, that ends. And our next... At least the next thing in my notes is the police informing Whit that Tony has run off.
Yeah, so that Tony's run off.
Because I think they kind of end that scene saying, like, that they're probably going to, like, try and put him in foster care.
They'll try and find a home for them. Yeah, I remember that distinctly.
But then our next thing is this might even be, like, they might be standing outside the WE or something. And the cop's just there?
You just called it the WE.
What's End 2?
Wits End 2. The Novacom Kids Center. I think in my notes, logistically, they track down a kid because they say they caught Tony trying to sell an electronic
Right.
planner. Which is
Right.
like,
Yeah.
just going past that, there's some logical, like, how does that happen?
Right. So they caught him for that, and then however he manages it, they're going to transfer him into foster care, and he and his sister disappear.
Yep.
And Whit finds out about it. The cops talking to him about it. My one thing was, like, wouldn't they have gone directly from the police station to this foster home? Like, it sounds like they disappeared in the meantime. Did they break out of jail?
Yeah.
Did the cops just say, oh yeah, you guys can go to that home you don't have to wait for this foster care thing? Because
Presumably, that's what happened. Which is not good. What we've learned today is that the Odyssey Police Department is bad.
Connellsville.
Connellsville, sorry.
CVPD.
Yeah. I don't have Officer Harvey. Yeah. Maybe Officer Harvey transferred there, and that's why he got cut out.
I'm kind of wondering. Also, the cops, like, what's kind of like, well, have you, like, checked for them under the bridge or anything? And the cop says, I'm having a hard time continuing to care about these kids when they're when they keep trying to avoid us. And I was like, that is a statement for a Wit character and not a cop.
Yeah.
This is an officer of the law, and he's like, look, these kids, they keep running away. It's my job for them not to. But, like, they've been doing it so much, I just don't feel like tracking them down.
These criminals.
Right.
These actual criminals.
These kids broke out of jail. And I'm like, well, they've done it a bunch. So, like, it just doesn't seem worth it. And we're supposed to see, like, oh, Wit's so great. He cares about these kids even when other people don't. The problem is, you made the person who doesn't care an officer of the law. He is a policeman. This is literally his job. Yeah. I don't get to be like, oh, your computer broke? Well, like, your computer's broke 4 times. This time I'm just not going to bother with it. It's my job to go repair it every time it breaks. It's his job to track down these kids every time they run away.
But he's really good at finding electronic devices. He's got that down pat.
He knows all the pawn dealers in electronic
planners. Yeah, and then so then Wit goes to the store site, or the Wits End in Oswald Heights. Because there's the pile of rubbish.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He goes there before he goes and tracks down Tony.
Yeah, and so they're...
Actually, wait a second. The police officer is talking to them outside of the construction site because they're talking about the fact that construction's been this is important. Construction's been underway and no one is vandalizing anymore. They don't need the security. Wit's whole plan worked to perfection.
Yeah, that is an important note, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have it written down either.
Well, yeah, because it's just a main plot point.
Right, because I have witty
notes. Yeah, that's all I have.
Observations. Yep. Pithy observations, not plot points.
Yeah, well, and...
Not since episode 1. Okay, so they're like, hey, your place is safe, great. Wit's like, hey, what's that big pile of rubble? Can I go look through it? And
convenient pile of rubble is convenient.
Why would you? But go do it. And he finds broken pieces of Tony's guitar.
Yep.
And, more importantly, his notebook of music.
Yeah. Yeah, which is huge, because that was the thing that, like, Tony notes, or he says earlier, when he gives Tony the guitar, he says, I know this can't replace the songs, but, like, I got you a new guitar.
Well, because the songs were the thing that he couldn't replace. Like, he'd been trying to rewrite them down and stuff, and apparently had some success in that, but that was the part when they lost their house in the first part of this that they were like, we can't replace that.
Yeah, okay, and then they go to the underpass, right? Under the bridge.
Yep, they're going back under the bridge.
And then we have Mr. Unnamed Thug guarding.
Yep.
And he says, and I quote, "Stop, old man. Nobody pushes past me."
I also have that exact quote written down, because
it's so bad.
Stop, old man.
In the name of love, stop.
Old man.
Yeah, yep. And so he pushes past him, obviously. He sees Tony. And Brianna's there as well. They're talking, obviously, so, like, Wit confronts him about stealing the electronic planning device, which, boy, can they just have a shorter name.
Which this is their second time meeting to discuss that. Like, because, it happened before. But this time, Wit's kind of going in with a plan. Because he's going in to confront them. And he does all of these, like, I have it down in my notes, just, like, word gymnastics.
Yeah.
Of, like, everything Tony says, Wit has the perfect response to it that more or less dodges the question. Like, he's just redirecting Tony left and right, and it's a little bit much.
It is. I definitely got that, too. They just took it
a step too far, where I was like, wow. All right, Wit, just, like, take a step back.
They've known you for like a week.
Yeah, don't be the it's that thing that like drives me crazy. I don't know, in general, where everyone like
Whit has no faults.
it's Whit has no faults, but it's also the problem that like I experience in real life of like you try and like open yourself up and be like, hey, these are the things I'm struggling with, and someone's like, here are all the answers you need. It's like, that's not helpful.
No.
There's no part of that is helpful.
I don't want answers. I just want commisery.
Like, it's not even that. It's just like, it's so, it's not that I want, like, it's not that we need to be miserable together.
Yeah.
But it's this thing of like,
Feeling a need to be heard.
feeling you need to be heard, and also like, you're not, if all you're doing is coming up with the perfect response, you're not listening.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel about Whit here, is he's just like, everything Tony says, he's trying to put a spin on it and change it and like get Tony to a place where he can close on this deal, but he's not listening to what Tony's saying.
Yeah, well, and Tony's main point is, if I remember correctly, like, thanks for, feeling guilty and giving us a place to stay for the night, but, like, stuff's messed up, and, like, are you, we've had this before, nobody actually cares about us, they just care about us, so they stop feeling bad.
Yep.
And then he says Whit has a mansion, which I know that was sarcasm, but in my head, Whit does have a pretty big house.
He has to.
A needlessly large house, because it's just him.
Yeah.
Maybe Jason at some point.
He also says, Tony also says at one point, man, you need therapy.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
actually, yeah. If he's hearing
like,
his dead
I
wife's
feel like-
voice.
I feel like this is part of... Oh, yeah. I feel like this is one of those, like, unfortunate conservative Christianity things of, like...
Putting derogatory tones on that.
Of, like, therapy is a joke and,
Yeah.
like, not something you should ever actually need.
Yeah, and, like, therapy's only for crazy people.
Yep, and this was just, like, there was just, like, slight undertones here.
ugh.
It wasn't, like, explicit, but it just kind of took me to that icky place of just being, like...
Oh, but why'd you have to say
Can
that?
we get past this? Can we please, as a society, be okay with therapy?
Yeah, well, and even in, like, 2001, I feel like it was definitely normal enough. Like, I get if it's, like, the 50s and the 60s when it was, like, first coming on the scene, but... Come on now. Come on now.
Granted, this is a radio show.
And it is done by Focus on the Family.
Yeah. They're a little stuck in the past.
Just a little
as
bit.
evidenced by a radio show.
Yeah, that is still on the air. That started in the 80s.
Yep. So Whit kind of closes this with one of the most frustrating word gymnastics of it all, where Tony turns to walk away, and Whit says, "Where are you going?" And Tony says some, makes some BS quip, and Whit's like, "No, I mean with your life."
Yeah.
And it's like, you did not mean with your... He turned and walked away. We heard the audio. You don't say, "Where are you going?" Like, it's the
With your
pronoun
life.
game
Dun,
of just
dun,
being
dun.
like, no, I was like setting up my own thing, and it's...
It's meant to build dramatic tension, but like also
Yeah.
it's just very unnecessary. Like,
Either say, "Where are you going with your life?" or be like, "Hey, come back here. I
like-
have more to say." Like, I don't
Yeah.
know.
it's
And this was
frustrating.
the other thing where it just got like a little too Mr. Whitaker preachy to me,
Yeah,
where he was just kind of like laying out like, "Hey, here's the stuff
you can
like,
get a part-time job.
yeah,
The glories
No, like-
of part-time employment. You can
No,
get.
like I think his heart's in the right place. I just think that some of the writing was just a little bit like,
Oof.
like, here I am with all the answers, and also like, but mostly where I had the issue was just like, you got, like, you're headed down a dark path and you need to turn yourself around, and it's just
And
like,
do what I say,
Right.
And take where I'll take care of you. Just do what I say. Like
Yep.
blindly trust me. Whatever.
yeah.
Um.
But no, Whit's got a good idea.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. And so then he sells them on the foster family that
Yeah.
lives in a farm out in the country.
Yeah, the Mulligans
Yeah. Which is cool.
of Nick Mulligan.
Yeah. Of the Nick Mulligans.
So
The Scottish Nick Mulligans. So they're, Wit sells him on this. Like, you live out on a farm, you can have 2 loving parents, like they've done this before.
Yep.
They've got animals. Brianna chimes in, it's like, animals?
Yeah.
Wow! And so, like, and that was kind of cool, and also, like, kind of annoying where, like, Wit kind of uses Brianna to get to Tony, and that, like, he talks about the animals and stuff.
yeah, a little bit.
I know it
Like,
wasn't intentional, but I
right.
feel like he, like, played on
No,
that.
there,
like, once
there
he
was
figured it out.
definitely a little bit of like playing on it, but mostly I'm just so happy with like Wit listened to what Tom said.
Yeah.
Didn't rush into things, took time to think things out, and came out with a solution that is much better.
Yeah, it's, like, actually genuinely good for both parties.
Yeah.
Because, like, he can rest easy knowing that these kids are being taken care of, and they
Yep.
are also being taken care of, like,
Right.
in ways that would be good for them.
So they agree.
Yeah.
Wit
yeah.
takes them, drops them off.
Yeah.
We hear lines spoken by what are the parents' names? Tracy and it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
2 Mulligans.
Yeah.
That is reused audio.
Is it?
Yeah, I double checked. It was in the wiki. I was like, those lines seem stitched together, and sure enough, they like went back to a previous episode that
With the
they had been
Mulligans?
in,
Yeah.
and just pulled it because it would be dumb to bring voice actors in to basically
Shoot, like,
Just-
one line.
right.
Yeah.
say they each say like bye Wit, like
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
But like there's a little bit where I was like,
This doesn't quite sound right.
they toyed with us a little bit, and sure enough they like
And so when
it.
does Tony tell them about the camera?
right now.
Okay.
But Tony's like, oh, so like the whole reason I was in your office in the first place is because some bald guy came up to me and gave me a book and said, hey, can you hide this in the office for me? And like I stole the electronic planner as a cover.
He gave him $50 for it,
Did give him $50.
which I suppose is valuable when you're homeless.
Yeah, it's valuable even if you're
Yeah,
not.
yeah. But it's extra
I don't know.
valuable.
See, this is the thing is like I don't know how much it takes. Well, I guess we do know that Wit's room definitely has a lock. That was established in a previous episode.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, if it was just like, hey, go put this book on a shelf in an unlocked room, here's $50, I'd do it.
Yeah,
If it's a
yeah.
locked room, probably not.
Yeah, I like $50 a lot.
But yeah, it's like, it's chaotic. I don't know how to pick a lock though, so that makes that fall apart. But anyways, he puts and so Wit's like, huh.
Yeah, this is odd, especially because this is the second time somebody's broken into his office to put something in there.
Yep. And
Back
so,
to the bad guys.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. We need to tie this into the overarching
Yeah.
thing. And 2 things of note are so the one thing that like stuck out to me here is just like the crazy coincidence that this bald guy picks a random kid to go plant
Yeah.
this book, and he manages to pick Tony, who's been living with
With
Wit,
Wit, yeah.
and then Wit tracks down Tony and sends him back, and Tony like fesses up to it and all that, and like it's
Yeah,
just
what are the
such a
chances?
coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. What?
But I'm John Avery Whitaker, and I don't believe in coincidence.
No, no.
You say things are coincidental. I think of them as providential.
Is that an actual line?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's in an I think album 3 episode with Connie.
Oh, yeah,
and-
yeah.
And she's like, no, but like that's such a
awesome.
coincidence. Things like that just don't happen all the time. And he's like, exactly, they don't. What you think of as coincidental, I think of as providential.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Because Christians can't believe in coincidence.
You'll die. Pillar of salt, Lot. She believed in coincidence.
Oh. So, anyways, Wit finds out about this book.
Oh,
It's
also,
been placed. Oh, sorry.
the farm out in the country. Doesn't that sound a lot like what your parents tell you when your dog dies?
Yeah.
Did you have that thought? Because I did too.
When you said the farm out in the country there, I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
They were just taken and murdered, weren't they?
Yeah. That was just the thought that I had. Anyway, back to the actual plot.
Wit goes to the office.
It's in a dictionary
Yeah, oh yeah, we do find out it's in a dictionary.
from Tony.
Yep. So Wit's looking around his office, Connie walks in and is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm looking for a book." She's like, "What book? A dictionary to look up what word?" And he's like,
Yeah. It's just like some very weird dialogue.
It's some pretty good. Like I liked it from a comedic standpoint.
Yeah. Well, because Wit can't reveal, because if there's something on, like, he can't reveal that he knows that it's there.
Yes and no.
Because he just disables it when he finds it.
That's exactly it. Is like.
And then Connie says, "A spy from Dairy Dream." Like, who wants to spy on us? A spy from Dairy Dream. We had the same...
Not Dairy
What?
Queen. Dairy Dream. They're looking for the Raspberry Ripple recipe.
Which is like...
And Wit's like, yeah, it's probably a whole lot better than Dairy Dream. And it's like, yeah. Good point. But going back to the camera in the book thing, why is Wit trying to hide that he's like, maybe if they were monitoring and realized that he was going for it, they'd self-destruct. Like, I don't know what...
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen. Because what he does is he disables it.
Yeah.
If he picked up the book and, like, set it somewhere...
Yeah.
Or, like, set something in front of it, that would be clever.
Yeah.
Of being like, hey, look, I thwarted them and they don't know that I explicitly am onto them.
Yeah.
When you disconnect it, they immediately know.
Yeah.
So why were you trying to cover it up? It was just for the punchline of Connie being like, what are you doing, Wit?
Yeah, which again.
Yeah.
And that's where the episode ends, right?
Yep.
And you get this outro, and Chris somehow manages to give it a moral, which is
what is her moral?
very, very loose. It was about trust, like doing the right thing and like being trusting, and like Tony trusting Wit and stuff like that. Which was interesting that they were able to pull that together. But yeah, did you have any closing remarks?
I don't think so. I'm getting excited. Like, these last two episodes were, like, good story, but they felt pretty disconnected from the plot that we've been building.
Yeah, the Nova comic.
Like, we haven't gotten any Aram or
Yeah.
all of this other stuff that's going on, or just Novacom in general.
Yeah.
So it was, like, really exciting to end it on this, like, there's
Now
a
there's
book
this,
and
yeah.
like a bald guy who stuck a book, like all this
in
stuff.
sunglasses and a ball cap, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that what I said?
Yep.
Yeah. It is really nice, and like as far as 2-part episodes go, I thought it was like pretty good. It was completely separate, but they do show that like it does create this very complete universe, I guess, that Odyssey does so well, where it's like all these multiple storylines are going on at once, and like this universe is a lot bigger than just the main characters in the episodes. And so this episode's really good for that, and just in general. I definitely really appreciated that. And like the plot movement was good, and like character development is good. Like, yeah, I mean, over the course of 2 episodes, you're introduced to these 2 new kids. They change their lives and Wit's lives as far as character arc is concerned, and then you kind of get like a good conclusion for that, which is really good and makes me wonder, why can't they do some of that character development with Connie? Please, dear God,
Fix
make
Connie.
her more than what she is.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to bring up, kind of on the end here, is that this is Brianna's last episode in the series. She was only in these 2. We will hear about her again. We will hear from Tony again, but this is it for her.
Sadly.
Yeah.
I thought she was a good voice actor.
Yeah. Okay. So that is that's the end of our episode. It's been fun, guys. Next week we will be covering the final episode of Danger Signals called Breaking Point.
See you next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Cooperative. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Episode 7, Chains Part 2, was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Sabo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.